Aquinas. The 5 Ways to Prove God. Have you ever stopped to really ponder the biggest questions? The ones about existence itself. We're not talking about what to have for dinner. We're diving into the deep end, right where philosophy meets faith. And when you do that, the name Thomas Aquinas inevitably surfaces. Forget those dry, dusty textbooks for a moment. Picture Aquinas as the ultimate intellectual detective, approaching the grand mystery of God not with blind faith, but with sharp, relentless logic. His famous 5 ways, or quinque viae if you want to get technical, aren't meant to be the end of the conversation, but a beautifully constructed beginning. A set of logical ladders, each starting with something we can observe right here in the tangible world, and climbing toward an explanation that must exist. The genius of the 5 ways, found in his monumental work Summa Theologica, is that they are based on empirical observation, on what's self-evident in our daily experience, long before they whisper the name God. He doesn't start with a divine revelation. He starts with the physics of the world. Let's unpack these, not as rigid proofs carved in stone, but as 5 fascinating thought experiments. The first way, the argument from motion. This is perhaps the most intuitive. Look around. Things move. A ball rolls, a leaf falls, a star orbits. Motion, for Aquinas, wasn't just a change of place. It was any change, from potentiality to actuality. Something cold becomes hot. Something uncarved becomes a statue. Here's his critical premise. Nothing can move itself. Think of a train car. It only moves because another car pulls it. That car is only moving because the engine pulls it. If you trace this chain of movers back, it can't go on forever. Why? Because if the chain of movers went on infinitely, there would be no first mover, and consequently no subsequent movement at all. The whole chain would be inert. Therefore, there must be a primary mover, itself unmoved, initiating all motion. We call this ultimate, self-sufficient kinetic force God. It's the sheer act of existence that powers everything else. The second way, the argument from efficient causality. Similar to the first, but broader. This deals with cause and effect, the very structure of our reality. Everything in the universe has a cause. Your desk was caused by a carpenter, who was caused by his parents, who were caused by their parents, and so on. Aquinas argues that, like motion, this chain of efficient causes, the cause that brings the effect into being, cannot regress infinitely. In any series of causes, the removal of the first cause means the removal of the subsequent effects. If there were no first cause, there would be no intermediate causes, and therefore no effects, like us, existing now. Since we clearly do exist, there must be an uncaused cause, a source of being that is responsible for the existence of everything else, but is not itself caused. This uncaused cause is what people understand as God. It's the root of all existence. The third way, the argument from contingency and necessity. This one gets a bit more abstract, dealing with the difference between things that could not exist, contingent beings, and things that must exist, necessary beings. Look at all the things around you, the tree, the phone, yourself. We are all contingent. We were born, we will die. We didn't always exist, and we won't exist forever. It is possible for every single contingent thing in the universe to not exist. If everything were contingent, there would have been a time, in the infinite expanse of time, when nothing existed. And if nothing existed then, nothing could come to exist now, because nothing comes from nothing. Therefore, the very fact that things exist now means there must be at least one entity whose existence is necessary, an entity that cannot not exist, whose existence is inherent to its nature. This necessary being, which sustains the existence of all contingent things, is what we mean by God. It's the root of all existence. The fourth way, the argument from gradation, degrees of perfection. We constantly make judgments about value and quality. We say this painting is better than that one, this person is wiser than another, this diamond is harder than glass. These judgments imply a spectrum, a scale, of goodness, truth, nobility, and being. To say something is more good or less hot is to measure it against a maximum standard. Just as a piece of wood is measured against a perfectly straight line, our human perfections, like goodness or wisdom, are measured against an absolute, perfect standard. Consequently, there must exist something that is the maximum of all these perfections, the ultimate source of truth, goodness, and being. This ultimate standard of perfection, which causes and informs all lesser perfections, is God. The fifth way, the argument from governance of the world, teleology. This is the argument from design. Observe the incredible regularity in the world. Acorns grow into oaks, not elephants. Planets orbit the sun with precise mathematical consistency. Things that lack consciousness, like an arrow, a river, or a biological system, nonetheless behave in an orderly way that achieves the best possible result. They act for an end. But unintelligent things cannot naturally direct themselves to an end. They can't plan. An arrow only reaches its target because it is directed by the conscious intelligence of the archer. Therefore, this astonishing, pervasive, goal-directed behavior of unintelligent natural things must be the result of a supreme intelligence that directs them toward their end. This supreme intelligence, this cosmic designer, is what we call God. So, what do we take away from these 5 meticulous arguments? Aquinas wasn't trying to convert skeptics with rhetoric. He was offering a rigorous, step-by-step rational process. Each way, from the simplest motion to the most complex pattern of design, forces us to conclude that there must be an ultimate, foundational explanation for the reality we experience. They converge on a being that is the unmoved mover, the uncaused cause, the necessary being, the perfect standard, and the ultimate designer. Whether you are a believer or a seeker, the 5 ways are a profound invitation to see the universe not as a random accident, but as a system permeated by a deep logical order that points beyond itself. If this deep dive into one of history's greatest philosophical minds sparked a new thought, or maybe even challenged an old one, don't let the conversation end here. Tap that like button to signal that you appreciate content that makes you think. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next adventure into the world's most mind-bending ideas. And most importantly, jump into the comments section below and tell me, which of the 5 ways do you find the most compelling, and why? Let's keep the intellectual fire burning.